people? Welcome to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. I am senior editor over at the Koalition, Adam Vale, and I'm joined by editor-in-chief of the Koalition, Richard Bailey Jr. Rich.
What's up, Adam? What's up, listeners and viewers?
And Throwdown's own Carlos Romero.
Yo, what's going on? Back at it again with a new spinoff.
Oh yeah, people. This is a triple header because if you're hearing this, whether on iTunes and Spotify, all that jazz, you also see it over on YouTube and on the Koalition proper. We did a double header for Fear the Walking Dead for episode 5 and 6, and now here we are for season 1, episode 1, Old Acquaintances, The Walking Dead, Dead City. And we're excited. So if you haven't watched that episode, go on AMC Plus, watch it, or just watch it on AMC proper on your cable channel, then come back. If not, if you don't care, get ready. We're going to spoil it and break it down. So 3, 2, 1. Boop. I was impressed. I liked this direction. It's darker. Definitely compared to Fear the Walking Dead, which is really just turned into a soap opera. This is, and I mentioned it before we started recording, felt very much like a comic. Not a lot of dialogue between characters. The shots, beautiful shots. A lot of CG work done on this to give the dark vibe and grittiness of the city, sort of like an Escape from New York, but a modernized version because of the technology that we have. It just had this feel to it, and there was cursing, there was some foul language, and it was fitting. It wasn't like, oh, they're just throwing it in there for proof. It was all fitting and just made sense that they applied it to this, and that is also just another little nod of like, hey, get ready. This is we're going in a darker direction. We're going into a more mature direction for this series. And I, right off the bat, I'm just, and then I want to get your impressions. I was impressed. I liked it. It pulled me in. So what about you, Rich? What did you think right off just first impression?
First impression, I think it was a pretty okay start off for the show. I don't think it's the best Walking Dead spinoff. Obviously, we've only seen one episode. It's definitely better than Fear the Walking Dead because that has been the worst season they've ever made. But yeah, so far I have a lot of questions. Some things I like, some things I'm a little iffy on, but I would say it's a pretty decent start to the season.
All right, Carlos.
I think I'm between Rich and you, Adam. I did enjoy this episode. I feel like the themes, the way the tone is in this show is really good. It's a lot more brutal. It's a lot more sweary, like you mentioned. So I did enjoy it. I liked a lot of the New York scenes as well. I thought that was really well done. So yeah, pretty, it's difficult to not praise this episode coming from Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
Because the bar was set so low by that, and this is leaps and bounds better than that.
And includes the show's namesake. Negan is back. Negan is back, and he is a focal point. He's not just one of the cast members. This is it. It's the Negan and Maggie show. That's what we called it before we found out the official name. Yeah, something to say, Rich?
Well, yeah, I want to make one comment, though. This is not the old Negan. If this villain brings out the old Negan, then yes. But it still feels to me like it's the same Negan. Just because he's swearing more, I'm still not convinced this is a new Negan. So we need to see how the character develops over the season.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so those who are not too sure and haven't watched because they're on the fence, should they bother? Let me just set this up for you. What's going on? There is a time jump from Walking Dead proper of the end with the Commonwealth and all that. If you recall, Maggie had left, right? And we also saw Negan leave. Different directions, just left the show. You see him from the window. They're gone. So they don't say how much time has passed. But the story and the plot of this, and it's a 6-part series. We don't know if they're going to come back for another one, but right now, 6 parts just as it is that Herschel has grown up. He's a little older. He's still, what do you think, 13, 14? It's
At least a teenager.
Yeah, it's an early teen. Yeah, at least a teenager. It's played by the actor that was in Afterlife, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the little nerdy podcast kid. He was in it. I'm sure I had the IMDb page up, but I'll bring it up after again. But yeah, so he's in there. He had a few lines. But anyway, the point is, there's another group run by Crowlett, and it turns out that this guy has been harassing Maggie over at the Hilltop, or it's
Croat.
Croat. But it's a little confusing because she had told Daryl at the end of the last episode of Walking Dead proper that she was going to go out there, just do her own thing. She was leaving. She didn't mention going back to Hilltop, right? But when she meets up with Negan, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, it's just because of it gets a little confusing when we do get to a point. But the main gist of it is that this guy has been harassing her community, getting supplies and other things, and they were having conflicts, and he kidnapped her son. And it turns out before he kidnapped, he did the whistle, and that's the iconic Negan whistle, and there you go. And that was a trigger for her, because then that means that clearly he was a member of Sanctuary and knows a lot about Negan in some way. So she finds a map. She finds out that she was tracking him, and he fled to Manhattan, or maybe that's where his group is. Don't want to jump ahead, but it looks like that's where he's from. So it wasn't like he was running from Maggie. But the point is, this whole story is she's trying to get her son back, and this is how she links up with Negan. This is one of the stories that we all were trying to figure out. How are they going to get them together to have a show? Well, this is it. She links this new villain to Negan and figures, well, let me track Negan, and then finds out that he is wanted by the new marshal of New Babylon, which is another community. And so she's hunting him down. So before I go too far ahead, just to give you a premise, that's what's going on here. Herschel kidnapped in Manhattan by someone that was formerly of Sanctuary. Maggie then now goes out to look for Negan, because figures, hey, this is somebody maybe you can work some kind of deal and get my kid back. So before I go any further, Rich or Carlos, what did you think of that? That's the plot for this show. Does it work for you?
Well, I felt like that was probably going to be the only way that Maggie and Negan would have been reunited. Something to do with the kids. Obviously, we know Negan was having a kid at the end of the series. Maggie already had Herschel. So we know the crux of whatever the plot of this show was going to be when we found out that both of them were going to be part of the spinoff had to probably do with the children. So it made sense. The whole thing with the Croat, I think he wasn't technically part of the show whenever Negan's group came out.
Nope. Rich looked it up just to see, and no, this actor was never part of that whole part of the series, or season 5, 6, around there. So no, he was not part of Walking Dead prior to this.
Yeah, so he wasn't part of it, but I guess they're trying to tie it in. I'm a little bit we knew it was going to happen. The whole Negan, and when we heard Maggie and Negan were going to be part of the show, we knew that they were going to squeeze out a lot more of that tension stuff that we went through with the last season of The Walking Dead proper. Remember, we talked about it. That's all these characters were. It's that will they, won't they? But in this terms, will they, won't they kill each other? And it keeps bringing it up. So, it is a little bit frustrating, I will admit, because even though it's understandable that what Negan did to Maggie, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like how much more juice can you squeeze from this story plot? Just every second and every moment, it's always that Negan and Maggie tension, and it's been going on for a couple of seasons now.
And go ahead.
No, I was just all right. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like, yeah, exactly. They just keep bringing up, and we thought they squeezed all that out in that last big conversation. It wasn't the last episode, but I think it was the episode prior to the last one at Working Dead proper, when they had that campfire talk. Remember Negan and Maggie, and they just like hashed it all out, and he apologized and the whole thing. And it's like, listen, I got a wife, I got a kid coming. Come on, I'm sorry. And we're like, all right, well, this is what we're at that point already knew about Dead City. So we're like, well, this explains why they're pushing this now with this one-on-one moment. It was a pretty long scene as well, just to flesh it out and get it over with. But then, as you see here, no, it's not. And it's like she's still bitter, and we'll get to some great lines later on in an episode where I hope it finally gets put to bed on that boat ride, because that was another little power moment. Like, come on now, let's just end this. But I don't know, Rich, when we had talked about this, we pretty much figured it had something to do with Herschel. But in my mind, I was thinking that she was just going to ask for his help, and he was going to say, well, yeah, I bonded with Herschel, and this, and I get it. So especially remember with the gun to the head and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm going to help you out. But no, it looks like he's got a darker path that led to her finding him and stuff. But before I get to that, you had something to say.
Well, let me first say what Carlos said. That is exactly why I think the show is just okay so far, because they're treading the same ground with the tension between these two characters, and it can't end the same way it ended in the regular Walking Dead. So I know there is a new showrunner now, so I'm hoping that he's going to have something that changes that relationship in some type of way. I'm not saying they need to hook up or anything like that, because I don't think we need to see any of that.
No, we don't.
It needs to be it needs to be a finality. Either they agree that they can coexist together, or somebody has to get killed by the time this show is over. So we'll see what happens. But to answer the question about the setup for the show, I actually think the concept is very good. The whole thing about the person that Maggie needs to. The bad guy in this show that Maggie goes after has a connection to Negan. So it makes sense why she would reach out to him and get his assistance. But like I said, I want to see, they have to really build upon this relationship between Negan and the Croat. Because again, like I said, when we started this podcast, Negan is supposed to be the old Negan, right? So I would hope this is the character that's going to bring that out in him, because to me it feels like it's the same Negan from.
Well, that's what Jeffrey T. Morgan said. When they were asking, him, it's like, oh, what version of Negan? Oh, we're going to see Negan of old. It's like, all right, well, we're getting the Negan of old with the swearing. From the comic that's there. But when it comes to the actual actions, we'll see. That hasn't really happened. Yeah. So all right. So let's just jump in now that we got all that out the way. So we open up this episode with Maggie scoping out Manhattan. So we know that she knows the location. She finds a building. She has a map, and that's the plan. But then she jumps in her Bronco. It looks like an 84, 85 Bronco. Really nice big Bronco, the old school ones with the big backs. And she heads off to New Babylon. Now, New Babylon, they don't say exactly where New Babylon is, but it's somewhere up in a wooded area. So this is what when we were talking before, and it's like, all right, she looks like she's viewing Manhattan from Brooklyn. But then she gets in her car and she drives off to like a wooded area. And yeah, we could pull like an I Am Legend and everything is overgrown. Maybe that's what's going on. Who cares? But the point is, they decided to rename that area. So wherever they're at, they weren't happy with that. And New Babylon, there wasn't another Babylon that I know of. So anyway, New Babylon. So she goes to this town and she starts talking to a bartender. Now, it's a community. There's communities. We have to assume that we're at a point in this universe that people have just adapted to life with walkers, or they call them multiple names. We had, what was the other ones? They called them It wasn't the one from Fear the Walking Dead final season, not the Cryons or whatever name they called them. Oh, there was something else.
Carry-ons were Fear.
That was Fear, but they called them something else in this one.
Pushers. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. They keep giving different names, and I know when we were watching, we were like, oh, why do they keep doing this? They gave it another name, but anyway. She says that she has a home location and she's having some issues and with these with the walkers hanging around, and if they know anyone that can handle this. It's like, oh yeah, we got a guy, he's really good, this and that, and he's in town. It's like, oh okay. So she then goes to say, so she has to go to the restroom, but then she's walking around because it's also connected to like a motel area. The door is open. It's weird. She doesn't show her picking the lock, and you hear someone in the shower. There's an altercation prior to that before she gets in, and it turns out that she's trying to get to Negan, right? And one of there was someone else as part of that community who I also remember from Star Trek Picard, and she attacks Maggie and thinks that she's part of some other group. It's like, oh, you're a spy and you're trying to get information. And then it was like a whole big altercation and they start fighting. And then Negan comes in, and then you see Negan running out with a girl. And then Maggie goes chasing within her Bronco, drops the map, right? That was the map, or was that the book? She dropped one of those items.
Right? It was a book. It was a book that had a lot of maps. There was a specific page of the book that was torn apart from the book, and that's the one that Maggie was carrying with her. I think it was the one about Manhattan.
Yeah, that's the one in Manhattan that she kept in the Bronco, and she chases him down, and then poof, this is where we get to the interesting part, and I get your idea of this whole thing. She finds Negan, she stops him, and he's running with another preteen, and she doesn't speak. And she fills him in on what we just discussed, that, hey, my community's been getting raided. This guy did the whistle. Do you know him? First he says he doesn't. Then he's like, yeah, actually, I do know him. Now I think about it. Yeah, okay. And then she's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, who's this girl? It's a whole story, but the father, that he was part of another community. This is Negan, came across her, and that her father had left, and she went looking for him, and it turns out that he had turned, but it wasn't by just the normal walkers attacking. It looked like people had done something to him, and shocked her, and she stopped talking and just tagged along with him. That's what he said. Then he left. But here's the thing that gets things a little more interesting, is that she then shows him there's a wanted poster and that she's been carrying around, and it has a picture of Negan on it. And he's wanted for killing magistrates and some other people, which I guess is like a judge and some others. And he was like, oh, wow, this is great. I love this image. Like, I'm going to keep this picture. This is beautiful. This is a great shot of me. This drawing of me. So before I go any further, though, she does ask him really quick. She was like, oh, what happened to your wife and kid? And he just brushes it off. And I know, Rich, you had an issue with that because you figured, hey, at least say something. And I agree. Now that I think about it, it's like he could have easily just said, well, I left her at the Commonwealth. I can't, I'm a hitchhiker. I'm a loner. I can't do the family thing. But then that contradicts the fact that he was so thrilled that he got married and that they were going to have a kid. Remember, he was like, I'm a new person now. Maggie, come on now. But then we did see him leave, and then that final episode, and he didn't bring them. So and then he just disregards the whole thing, and that's when he went in to talk about the new little girl that he's walking around with. So, Rich, go ahead, say your piece, because I know you're upset with this.
So, I will just say, hopefully we will get an answer as to what actually happened to them. But as for the new girl character, this felt a lot to me like Lydia in her relationship with Negan. So I kind of feel like, again, they are rehashing the same thing where there's a young female character that takes a liking to Negan. And I personally can see, just because I've seen so many shows in the past, I think I'm about 100% certain this girl is going to end up getting captured by the Croat, and Negan's going to have to try to get her back as well, because I don't know any other reason why they would make him care so much about this character, which means that something's going to happen to the character. She's going to be in some type of danger. as the season goes on. That's just what I could see coming. But yeah, hopefully we do get some answers as to what happened to his wife eventually. But for now, we'll see what happens.
Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw Negan and his wife, he was in his knees begging for her to be saved and stuff. So they better, yeah. Hopefully we get more clarity. My guess is contractual stuff. you know how it is with The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so we'll see. Obviously they probably have a kid. Who knows how old the kid is, because we don't know how big that time jump was. So we'll see with that. But yeah, the Ginny character, I kind of agree with Rich. But I'll expand more on that. I think the reason why this character kind of exists is to give humanity to Negan. I think that's what these characters usually do. Lydia was part of this, and also let's not forget. I'm blanking on her name. Rick's daughter,
Judith.
Judith was also part of this.
He's a magnet for young kids, and not in a creepy way. I mean, they just he helps them, and then it sort of like brings him down to earth. But I think also they had to do something like this just for the trade-off, which we'll get to later on when they discuss why he even agrees to help, Maggie, because he really doesn't have to. But that this is part of the trade-off, and we'll get to it once you're done with your piece.
No, I'm pretty much done. I think that's what a huge portion of what this character is going to do is sort of show you Negan's humanity in this, and yeah, pretty much it, at least for this section.
Yep. All right. So another character that we're introduced to is a new marshal for New Babylon. So this marshal is the one that is for New Babylon. And this is why I don't know where he was before, because they had shown, like I mentioned, Maggie in her Bronco driving into New Babylon. So clearly Negan was there in that area, but now the marshal is looking around, and he grabs the same woman that had attacked Maggie, and there was a fence, and he put her face against it and started making noise. Walker's coming. He wanted more info. What do you know? Where was he? I don't know. This and that. He just came to town, whole big thing, and then yeah. It was a woman. She took him. But she lets her go, and then he says, but still aiding and abetting the whole thing, that's still a crime, and grabs her and throws her in anyway. Blah, 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 blah. And she gets him. And that's a key part there, because it just shows that he, even though he is the law, he doesn't care about like sticking by the book as much as he makes it seem like he is. He's acting more like a bounty hunter, and that's the vibe I got from all of that. It's like, all right, yeah, we get it. You say you're a lawman, and he has a deputy with him for this journey, but is that right there? And then he tells the deputy, I had to do that. They had to see this. It's like, well, really? I mean, what to scare them straight? Is that what's going on? I don't know. It is whatever. But and like I mentioned, that this is the character, and once you get to talk, I really want to look her up, because she's a great actress. She was in the Star Trek Picard, so it was a callback to the way Walking Dead used to be, when you would see a TV known star, not a superstar, but a known star. I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that person, and then all of a sudden, oh man, they're dead already. I didn't see that coming. I figured, you see them, they're part of the show. Remember, even from Everybody Loves Chris, that comes to mind. Remember that actor? And he was like in a handful of episodes, and yeah, he died too. So no one was safe, and even if there were a semi-known actor. And that's what I got the vibe from this now, because it's like, oh, once I saw her, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Picard is done, and I'm sure she filmed this knowing that they were doing the last season. And okay, this is oh, you're dead. Okay, there goes that. You're not a new mainstay of the show. So that was great. That was another little wake up call. So yeah, so we have that, and then he finds that book. So now he's putting two and two together. It's like, all right, well, there was a woman, and she took Negan. I was like, okay. And now he sees that they're going to Manhattan. He knows where they're going. Again, I don't know where this New Babylon is, but it can't be that far, because he's able to make it to that area. And that's another interesting point, is that once he gets to the area, he's having a little conversation with his deputy. He gets out to take another closer look, go walk, and that's when Negan and Maggie, they approach the car, and they grab this deputy out, and they bring him with them, because they're like, well, we got you as a, what was it? What was the reason of that? Like, that's, now that I think about it, I'm saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, why did they do that? Because unless they felt that he was going to see them, but then knock him out, tie him up in a bush or whatever. But she did mention, once they sort of, I guess they kidnapped this deputy, they bring him onto the boat to go to the city, that they can use him for leverage or collateral, whatever it was, because Negan was talking about, it's like, he's just dead weight. Let's just throw him over. We don't need it. It's like, he doesn't have a weapon, because he says that you only get a weapon at a certain year or whatever. And he had pills in his pocket for grandma, but then he was like, she's not really my grandma, but she raised me. It was a weird little conversation that they were having with him. I don't get the point to that, unless they wanted us to see as this is an inexperienced person. He's young, he's naive, he's in a bad spot. This is the person that you're supposed to feel for in this situation. It's like, feel sympathy for this guy. But before we go further, there is one key part, and this is the part that really matters, because it's during this boat ride when Maggie again starts saying, well, you owe me, and you got to help me with all this. She starts mouthing all the stuff to Negan, and he's just fed up, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, I did what I did, but we all did stuff. No one is good here. And it's like, that's it. It's like, yeah, okay. Now, did you ever think about how many fathers and brothers and all that stuff? How many have you killed? You're still bitter about this one. He's like, oh, well, I can't forget, and this and this. And he's like, look at all these years. You got to let it go at some point. And then also it comes up that he feels like he doesn't really have to do any of this stuff. But this is the trade-off. The trade-off is that she had agreed. And that was one part that I just realized I just blanked out, because this is so much notes on it. That he will help Maggie with this as long as she provides safe passage for the girl to go to Hilltop. So then that's the trade-off here. So they are bringing this up on the boat as well. He was like, listen, I'm here for this reason, and that's the only reason why I'm helping you with this whole thing. But she's still bitter about everything. And I get it. It's a death, but if you're that bitter, if this is the character, you don't reach out for this person for help. No matter how bad things are, you find a way. Or, I mean, in reality, this Negan would have been dead. With all the times that she had a gun pointed at him, she could have just ended it. So I agree, Rich. When you brought it up before, it was like, hey, how long are they going to drag this vendetta, this whole thing out? I'm hoping this is the end. I hope this conversation they had on the boat, it was like when he just threw it back at her, like, look in the mirror, like, how many have you killed? I'm sure you killed a bunch of fathers and husbands. Come on now. Just let it go. These things happen.
Yeah, exactly. I do have one other critique, though, that I do want to mention.
Mm-hmm.
Since you mentioned they're on the boat, and of course we get that excellent shot of the fog going away to remove the buildings. So let me just ask this question, though. If I know I'm going to a unknown area, why the hell don't I have a weapon? Or a gun or something? They had knives, yes, but I mean that's why I say that plan doesn't really work for me, because I'm thinking I need to have some type of protection if I'm going over. What they thought they were just going to go find Negan's former colleague, talk to him, and everything, and that's it. No
parlay. They're just going to have a little conversation. Yeah, no, Negan doesn't even have his bat. And Lucille is gone. We know that, so he would have to find a new one. And I was hoping that would take place in this one. That maybe while they're running around in the city, something happens. They find him Odell's or something. I don't know. And he picks up a bat. And it's like, all right, this will do.
Well, it's evident that they will need a weapon moving forward, because
well, they did try to get a weapon from the deputy, and remember, he was like, I don't carry a gun. I don't have a gun. Yeah, but even
Yeah,
then,
well,
if you have that, it's not like he's Rambo. He's not going to carry like a bunch of bullets across his chest. There's only so many rounds he would have on
oh
him
yeah,
anyway. So yeah, I
yeah,
agree. She should have had in the back just a stack of ammo, like you know what I mean, like ready for war. But I don't get that feeling. I think it's whatever happened, and she just jumped in her car when she realized that Herschel had been
yep.
kidnapped and just took off. She didn't really prepare.
Yeah, I think that was necessary. Obviously, they're telling you that Maggie is an emotional wreck because she needs to get her son back and has to rely on Negan. But you know you're going into a situation where you're not going to be able to negotiate with somebody. You need to be ready to protect yourself at all times. That's the only thing I would mention. But we'll see what happens.
And she has no other friends. She doesn't have Snake Eyes with her. Remember Snake Eyes? And he stayed with Lydia, I think, also over at Hilltop. But at least then, when she showed up with the last failed community, remember that whole thing? She had backup. She had some friends. This one, it looks like she had nobody, or she just took off, and that was it. But it's interesting. So, Carlos, what did you think of this whole part? The story, and then now they're in the boat. You think this is the last time we're gonna hear her start griping about Negan killing her husband?
Hell no.
No. Oh, she's gonna keep bringing it up, right?
It's gonna be brought up every episode of the series. Yeah, I liked how ruthless the marshal was, the introduction, all of that. Obviously, don't agree or condone his actions, but if you want to bring up a compelling, dogmatic villain, then what he did makes sense. Um, Shout out to the actor. He looks exactly like Frank Ocean, but we know he's not. Um, and yeah, the kid officer. Yeah, I agree with you guys. They're using him as sort of like a sympathetic figure in all of this because he's pretty green in terms of just everything. Seems like in terms of moving around and being an officer and all this, or marshal, they're called marshals.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention this though. It's crazy how, and Rich knows this better than any one of us in this conversation. Maggie and Negan are from Georgia. The hilltop, the Commonwealth, everything is based off of Georgia, and they're making it seem like Georgia is just a midday's trip away from Manhattan.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is
that's always the issue, and that's what we had when we covered Walking Dead proper. Is like the map. Show us a damn map, because they would navigate all around from different groups and compounds and the Commonwealth and traveling. It's like they would. I think the Commonwealth and Alexandria was the only one that they actually said took multiple days. They were like, oh well, it's a few days trip, but going over to the kingdom and all the other ones, it didn't seem like it was that long. In the comics, they said it was multiple times, but on the shows, yeah, things happened fairly quick. And the same thing here, like this New Babylon, I don't know where this is. Don't tell me that it's some part near Georgia and you just picked them up and you took that drive to New York. I don't believe that unless this is somewhere upstate New York, because it was definitely a lot of trees. It definitely looked like they were in a wooded area.
Yeah, so that's one minor gripe that I have. Well, that I have with most of the Walking Dead, except for the Walking Dead proper, because they didn't really travel that far. Except I think the farthest they did was
they went to DC. Remember they did DC.
But the other, especially Fear, they just
Fear
you have
everywhere.
no sense of direction of where the hell anything is, or where everyone's at, or how long things took. So this whole thing with the hilltop, and Maggie's coming from there, and then somehow she's in New York. She goes back to wherever Babylon is. We don't know where that is. Is that in Georgia? We don't know. And now she's going back, and then the marshals decide to follow them all the way to New York. Well, outside of their jurisdiction, my guess is unless their jurisdiction is in New York, which we don't know if it is because we don't know where the hell Babylon is.
Well, I think that, like I said, I think either he's BSing about being a marshal and maybe he's just a bounty hunter type of thing, but then he does have that second in command. And that now I think about, the guy had said, oh, well, it takes a few years before you get a gun. So I scraps that out. But he did say it was sound like a judiciary, he said, right? And some other people this guy had killed. So maybe because of the person that he killed was so high up in that community, it's like they just go out and get him. And as he was telling the deputy before, when they were taking that trip to Manhattan, he said that once everything hit the fan in Manhattan, sort of like in Escape New York, they closed off the tunnels, the bridges, and they left everybody in there to fend for themselves. And so that there is no jurisdiction then. There's no government. There's no ruling. I mean, whoever's there surviving, what they have to be like cannibals. Where are you getting fresh livestock? There's no farms. That's what you got. From what I know, living in New York, it's you got Central Park Zoo, and you got the Bronx Zoo and stuff. Unless you go further upstate, but if you're even then, the Bronx is cut off. That bridge is all cut off. So it's going to be pretty rough. It's pretty rough there, and that's what he was just explaining to him. But I think that's it. That it's his goal is to just hunt this guy down and bring Negan to justice. Doesn't matter where he's going. He just has to go and do it. Right. So I don't know if that helps answer that, with his whole thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his motivation is. I mean, like I mentioned, he did seem really dogmatic in the way that he went through things. He's bringing up laws and stuff. So maybe he's just one of those people that takes his job like extra serious. Who knows? Maybe Negan did something to someone related to him, and he's going after revenge. Could be that. My guess is that because the marshal kept mentioning Negan killed someone with a bat. He said, "Oh, he killed a."
Well, he brought that up when he was talking to that woman before from the other town before he did what he did. We're talking about, there's a rumor that he lined up a bunch of people underneath and he killed a husband in front of a pregnant wife. That whole thing. He brought that up. And then they even showed some flashbacks, before, and you see Negan doing the whole thing.
We got a lot of those.
Yeah, we got a lot of flashbacks of him just bashing. But they forgot all about Abraham. It wasn't just one man that died there. There was two, but whatever. And so they brought that up, and but that's not why he's hunting him, though. He said it was because of the judge, this judiciary, and some other higher ups. And then during that same boat ride, when Maggie and Negan started having this heart to heart, he then even points out, I was like, it's not how the marshal said it went down. There was a lot to it. So I'm thinking, this is just me speculating, but I'm thinking that Negan helped the girl when he found out, when she said, "Oh, I'm assuming that when she went into New Babylon, remember we saw right at the gate there was some bodies hanging, right? And I'm assuming these are people that broke into law. That's what happens to them. They hung them up, just letting them know. It's like, hey, look. And then, as they turn after they die. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking something like that. Like he mentioned, she saw her dad die and turn, but not from a bite, not just from a walker. So it was another man that did it. So he probably went and took care of that. But it turns out that the people that did it were of higher power in the community. And so then he's like, oh, I got to go and you got to come with me. You can't stay here. And it's typical Negan, because he, as much as he is a bad person in a way that they want to portray him as, like, he's out for himself and all this stuff, he's really not. When we saw that one single episode that he did for Walking Dead, where he talked about he was a gym teacher and stuff, he has this connection with the young people and helping them and trying to talk to them and guide them. But he's also a magnet for them. They always, like the Lydia and Judith, they find like some reason to connect to him. And it just seems to work out that way. So I think that that's the connection there. and we'll find out that, yeah, so he's wanted and he did something bad, but like he said, there was a good reason. And maybe you're right, Rich. Maybe that girl will come back. I don't know how she come back, because she seemed okay with leaving to go with that other person or stay at New Babylon to go to Hilltop. But then I'm still not sure about the whole Hilltop thing, because she said her community got attacked. She didn't mention Hilltop at that point. And then Negan said, well, do you still have that community, or is it Hilltop still have schools and all that stuff? And he says, yeah, they could take care of her. So I don't really understand if Hilltop is even where she decided to go back to. And if she did, whatever. But maybe you're right. Maybe that girl will come back. But then that doesn't really make sense, because how would she get to the island? She would need a boat. So, and they don't know. The Crowlett, he doesn't know. The new villain, he doesn't know at this point that Negan is part of this that's with Maggie coming back to the island. And he doesn't know that he was traveling with a girl. And we're not seeing the walkie-talkie system that we've seen in The Walking Dead and in Fear Walking Dead, where it has like an unlimited range and everyone's talking to each other, you know. Oh man, so it's a lot. It's a lot. So we'll just I think that's what I'm gathering from all of that part. Let's see. What else? Well, let's just get into the city. So the set is beautiful. This is what I wanted. Something dark, something gritty. As a New Yorker, that's what I expect to see in all of these type of movies. Whenever they show anything dark or anything tragic, I want to see it all meshed. I mean, some things don't really add up when they start showing the steam coming from the sewers. That is done by the sewer department, the sanitation department, when they start cleaning out the foods. I don't think those people are there, so that wouldn't be there. But that's a minor gripe that I have. A lot of shows always put that in, but it looked great. It looked great, and it was awesome to see walkers falling from he was like, Negan said, "Oh, now we got walkers falling from the sky." So I guess when the deputy tried to run off and he made that noise, they heard it, and they were from one of the buildings, and they just walked toward it just mindlessly and just went right through the window and fell into a car and in the streets. And this really led to a bunch of chases and fighting and walkers and stuff within one of the buildings, but overall that whole, if this is how they're going to depict the city, and this is the setting, and I'm assuming it is for the rest of the series, because it's supposed to all take place in Manhattan, I'm all for it. I mean, there's so many possibilities. They could go into the subway system. They can go into buildings and skyscrapers and do all kinds of little
Central
navigations.
Park.
They can go. Oh no! Please stay away from the park. Once they go in the park, I'm going to start thinking of Georgia. I don't need to see any more trees.
Central Park these days. I mean, right now, Central Park after night is pretty much the same.
Oh well, yeah. It can get creepy. It can definitely get creepy. Yeah,
but it's I do that. That's probably the thing, or one of the things that I enjoyed the most out of this episode. I did really like the setting. I did like the atmosphere that they built within the city. We didn't get enough rats.
Got a lot of roaches. Got a lot of roaches.
We got a lot of big roaches.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought they nailed the setting and the tone they had to do with this, and also even getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Even during the daytime with when they're on top of the building, that looked really good too. So yeah, good stuff with the setting.
Yeah. Rich, what did you think? What did you think of the setting, of how they put this together?
Yeah, no, I thought the setting was great. I didn't really have any additional thoughts on it. I think it captures New York very well, and I look forward to seeing a Statue of Liberty in the future episode that is going to look in really bad shape, but be very fitting of the timeline.
I was thinking about that too, because I was like, they showed that in the advertisements and the poster. It's like it's an iconic thing, and he even brought it up. He's never really seen the Statue of Liberty and all that stuff, but it would be great to see them do something on Liberty Island. Like maybe Liberty Island is another base or something. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see any of that stuff. But yeah, once we'll just keep going into it because there's a few more things and then that's it. We'll be done. But there was just a lot. So people, if you're like, oh, this is a pretty long episode. Well, this is the first episode, so there's a lot to set up the mood, set up the scene, set up what's going on. So it turns out that no surprise that the marshal, he has also reached Manhattan and has been tracking them down based off of all the noise that they've been making. And he's asking, this is where he finds one of their locations where they're hiding out. And he walks in and he starts talking. And this is where we get a little backstory, which is kind of interesting. And I was trying to figure out if this was all a setup, because he says, hey, what was his name? Percy something. He says his name, but it doesn't matter. He's just Marshall, because who knows if he's going to last.
Armstrong.
Yeah, there you go. Percy Armstrong. He's like, yeah, this is my name. I'm married. I got 3 daughters. I come from New Babylon. It's a nice area. I'm just doing my job. I'm looking for this guy. I don't know why you grabbed him or my marshal, his deputy, whatever. And maybe you have your reasons, but maybe you can come out and tell me your reasons, because if I find you before you tell me, then things are going to get pretty bad. But there's a fight, whole big to do. There was another. Now, I couldn't really tell. I watched this twice because I saw it before. I still couldn't tell. He was with someone else? There was another marshal with him?
There was 2 marshals and a kid.
When did the other one show up? Because he wasn't in the car. So that's where I'm like, where did he find this? Because even when he was back at New Babylon, when he did the whole thing with the girl and put it with the fence, there was only one.
He was there at that time. You missed that. He was there. He
wasn't talking.
Yeah, because when they walked out, the kid walked out with them, and he was asking him, if it's right for you to do that. He was right there when they had that conversation. So he was with them the whole time.
All right. So he was the extra.
Well, he was always there. He was there from the beginning. He got out of the car in the bar. He was there when the kid got taken, and he was there when he got. He was keeping watch when they went into that clothing store or the cleaning store where Negan and Maggie were at. And I don't know if you don't remember him, then you probably forgot that he got killed.
He was the one getting eaten.
Yes,
they were chomping on him. And so that happened. After the fight, the big fight, Maggie was fighting with the marshal, and while she's doing that, she then explains, because he's got the upper hand, like, I need him to get my kid. And what was it? It was Negan that knocked him. It was Negan that knocked him, right? I don't think she got, or was she able to reach? Because I couldn't tell. It was really dark, and there was just all kinds of stuff going on there.
Maggie and Marshal Armstrong were fighting.
Yeah.
After Marshal Armstrong shot the kid, who was with Negan. I don't know if the kid died or what happened to the kid. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I think that kid is dead. That's a clear shot. We'll find out in the next episode, but I think that kid is dead. They're focusing more so on the marshal.
Yeah.
That's the character they want you to remember, not the other 2.
Because the key takeaway from this was just when Maggie stood up, and clearly the marshal is just knocking conscious on the ground, and she has his gun, and she could just put him down right now, but she doesn't, and she leaves the gun. And that was the first thing Carlos was like, "Oh, take the gun." And it's true. You were asking the other deputy for his weapon. He didn't have one. Well, now you have one, and you don't. So. Yeah. I guess it was like, hey, I'm not a murderer, I'm not a thief. Here you go. But he's gonna keep chasing you.
I'm not a murderer, not a thief, but I'm not gonna go to that length to come back to get my son. That just doesn't make sense. I don't understand why she didn't take the gun with her. It would help her in her pursuit for her child. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's the gripe I have there. Plus, there's a bunch of walkers in the other room or outside of that building. They're going to come in there, and maybe that's why she left the gun. So it's like, hey, you have a fighting chance. You're going to waste all your ammo trying to fight them, and we're heading out of here. Yeah, and so now we get to the grittiness for this right toward the end, and this is with Crowlett. Right, Crowlett. This is it. This is the guy. We get to see him. He's a known actor from a bunch of projects, and we see that he is having a little heart-to-heart with Herschel, and so it's talking about, hey, do you know that about the person who killed your dad? Do you know Negan? And I was like, oh, well, this actor clearly knows how to act, so he's gonna spew it, and they're gonna show like the flashback. But then again, it's a different actor; it's not the same one. But at least they could show when he pointed the gun, just a gun, pointing at Negan's head. Remember that whole scene where Negan was like, "Hey, just do it," or you can come see me when you get older. But he doesn't say anything. He stays quiet right there. And he doesn't want to spew any of that info, which is interesting. I thought maybe that could have been helpful in the story in a way. It was like, yeah, I know him. I know what he did, because this is also, they did, I think if I remember right, this was where they did the flashback of like showing Negan doing the bashing and all that stuff, just for, I guess, new viewers who are not familiar with Walking Dead proper, and this is their first introduction to this show. Like, I'll just watch this. Let me see what's. Oh, well, that's brutal. He did that. That guy on that boat did that. That's, oh wow. So the kid Herschel doesn't say anything. This guy's just talking about him. It's like, yeah, I know him, and he was with your community. He's doing a little backstory for him. But then a guy comes in, one of his henchmen, and says, hey, the guy escaped. So then they go to the roof, and we see that this is this guy. He's just got pants, no shoes, no shirt, and he's running for his life. He's all beat up looking, and he's running across the roofs. And this is the part you were talking about, Rich. Yeah, it was a great shot. You see all the rooftops and stuff, and everything still looks gritty. And I love it. I love the fact that it doesn't. I'm not going to be completely convinced that it's all filmed in New York. I know they were on set in New York because they talked about it, and Jeffrey D. Morgan talked about it. But I'm not. It just looked fitting. It looked great. I liked the overall layout, because you do these. They provided these really big tracking shots, these wide angle shots. And you can see further off in the distance, and you see a bunch of buildings. You see everything. It just looked great, and it was during the day. But then maybe you guys can fill this part, because I don't know where he picked this up, but he was clearly running towards somewhere, and he was running toward, it looked like a zip line, because then he grabbed from the floor. He picked up one of the little hooks that you would have on a zip line. And we've seen this in video games. Dying Light came to mind, the new one with the zip lines. And there's a few other games where when there's walkers and things, basically you're not supposed to be on the ground because it's not safe, and you just travel from rooftop to rooftop. And they've set up this form of transportation, these zip lines. So it looks like that's where he was going. He hooks one up on it, and then he's zipping down. And as he's in the process, the new baddie, Crowlett, goes up and just cuts the line. And then you see the guy fall. Then the villain looks back at his buddy. He's like, what? It was like 20 stories. That's a new record, right? Yeah. All right, we did it. Yeah, and that's it. That's how that ends. But the takeaway wasn't so much of, all right, well, he does mention the reason why he has this guy is because he wants to know more about the guy's community. So that's a takeaway. There are other communities that are not all corrupt that live on Manhattan. Maybe it's further uptown. We know Manhattan is, most of the time people, especially if they're not from, they're like, oh, it's small, because you think of what you see on TV, and it's always showing like downtown and midtown. But once you go uptown and stuff, the heights, stuff, it could be like a whole other world. So maybe that's where this guy's from, but who knows? It's great to hear there was other communities. And
they really missed out on Princess being on this show, man. She would have fit right in.
Oh man, who knows? It's not. Who knows? That's the other thing, and I was going to get to right at the end of when we discuss. And I'll save that one, because right at the end, just where we think if we could see any surprises, guest stars and stuff, or at least locations. But that's a takeaway, and also that he knows, I guess, about Negan and the connection with Maggie. I don't know if he knows. I don't remember him saying it, but it was just funny that he brought that up to Herschel. out of all things to bring up, because like you kidnapped Herschel because of some issues you're having with Maggie. Why are you bringing up Negan? Like, unless I missed something and they know that Maggie's on the island with Negan, because we saw when it said, the coming attraction for the next episode, we hear it. We hear him say, "Oh yeah, I know that Negan is here with Matt." But at this point, right? We didn't know. He didn't know that.
No, I believe he did. In my opinion, I think they paint this villain as he is one step ahead of Negan. That's why I had said earlier, if he somehow gets access to Negan's friend, I could see that happening. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But they're trying to give the impression he's a step ahead of Negan. He already knows Negan is helping Maggie, so we'll see what happens.
All right, so maybe, yeah. So I mean, it's easy. They could easily say he had one of his guys up on a rooftop with binoculars, or just heard all the commotion, because they did make a lot of noise and there was a bunch of walkers. We have not seen the running ones, and that has been advertised. At least that's what they had verbally advertised, that we were going to see the mutated walkers in Dead City.
I think we'll see I think we will see that eventually, but I think the running one, I kind of feel like I thought that was going to be on the Daryl show.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. It's definitely going to be on the Daryl one. But the reason why with this one, because they were saying, oh, yeah, we were going to see the different walkers here in the city environment. If they don't do that, then it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, we haven't seen it, and they had opportunities if they wanted to throw that. So who knows? Maybe we won't.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't, because there was that one scene when there was a bunch of them in the street. Remember? You could have had some of them running, or even the one that fell from the roof, or from the building itself, could have just got up and just started running at them. There's ways they do, and they didn't even mention it. That's the other thing. So as far as we know, Negan and Maggie don't know that there are mutated ones, because they've never brought it up. They weren't there when Lydia and them saw that. So who knows? We'll find out. We have 5 episodes left on this. But overall, I like the setup. There was a lot going on, but it wasn't too like, oh, well, this happened and this one and this and all this off-camera dialogue. I hate that. That's what plagued Fear, to turn it into just a soap opera as opposed to just a horror comic show. That's it. That's what I wanted from The Walking Dead, and that's why it was so great. And when Fear came in, it was just Hollywood, because it's not based off of a comic. They lost track. They lost track, and it started off in that vein, and then he said, we're just going to add all this stuff and put a bunch of characters and have them go into these long rants about things that happened in their lives, and no action on screen. And but it looks like they went back to the old formula, and that's great. Looking forward to how they progress this. From what we know, it's only 1 season, but just like all the other projects, the whole point of these shows, with this Tales of the Walking Dead, the Norman one, and all what, it's to see what sticks. Because if something sticks, and they can bring that audience, at least half the audience that was from Walking Dead proper. Remember, at one point, that show was pulling like 12 million views or something like that a night. And even people were like, oh, why did Walking Dead go so long? Why did Fear? Because they were still pulling multi-million views. Yes, it wasn't from the height, but they were still getting really good views. There is an interest in this. People just like this genre. And they're like, man, it doesn't cost that much to produce. So let's see if we can strike this match, and maybe we can catch fire again. And at least with this one, yes, this is on location. This is a big deal. What?
It seemed like you started buffering.
No, that's not good. Yeah, it was a storm. But at least this one, yes, it's on location. This was a big deal. They had talked about this production going to New York stuff. It's not cheap. You still have to pay for film locations and stuff like that. But it's going to pay off, because this is what we wanted to see. If not just New York, just the city environment. That one time when we saw Rick and them in Atlanta, we thought it was going to get crazy, and it really didn't do much. Not a lot happened. It was just like him going through with the group, and then they were out. It's like, oh, man, we want to see this. A change of environment, change of pace, everything. Just as opposed to everybody just running in the woods through shacks. So this is going to be great. At least I hope it's going to be great. What about you, Carlos? What do you think? You think this is going to be a good series?
I feel like this is going to be a better series than Fear the Walking Dead. I feel like this is going to be a better series than World Beyond. I feel like this is going to be a better series than Tales of the Walking Dead.
Yes.
And that's as much as I can go. Although I will say, I do like where they started from. This is a pretty good start. Hopefully, it keeps getting better and better, and they build upon what they've been settling in here with Negan and Maggie. Yeah, I do appreciate the settings and locations. It does feel authentic. The scaffolding looks really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it made sense that they were like, "Oh, run up the scaffold." Yeah, because there's scaffolds everywhere in the city. Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I looking forward to episode 2. Enjoyed episode 1, even with some minor nitpicks here. So yeah, looking forward to and this is a short series, like you mentioned. It is what 6 episodes?
6. Yeah, 6.
So there aren't that many episodes to have much lull moments. So looking forward to episode 2. We'll see about the Croat. Hopefully he's a good villain. The Marshal, I don't know if he's going to remain kind of like an anti-hero villain type character, because there's they're getting chased on from both directions, from him and from the Croat. So we'll see how they.
I think he's going to help. I think when he's not dumb, he's going to realize that she had the upper hand and she could have taken him out. She didn't, and he does know now it's about helping in and getting her son out. So I think he's going to play a big part in trying to help retrieve Herschel from this new group. Rich, what did you? Okay. Yep. Rich, what did you think of this episode?
Hold on. You said the Croat is going to help?
No, the Marshal is going to help.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say.
No. The Marshal's going to help fight the Croat and that group to help get Herschel.
Yeah. All right. So, I think the show is very promising. I do, however, want to respond to a comment that was made earlier by Carlos saying that you would not mind if Princess showed up. I'm going to say this, just in my personal opinion. I don't want to see any other Walking Dead characters on this show. The Walking Dead. Now, let me explain. The reason why I say that is because whenever The Walking Dead tries to tell too many stories, this is when they have issues. I like that this is a self-contained story with an antagonist and 2 fan favorite characters. So I think that they don't need to have anyone else appear on this show. And again, it's only 6 episodes. So that's just enough time to focus on this one story here. So I don't really want to see any other cameos. It's just my personal opinion, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't see any of that happening in this unless it gets picked up. And if it gets picked up for like a full, like what they're used to doing with 16 or 24 or whatever, if they come back with something, then maybe if it makes sense. I don't see how Princess's story would make sense. Yeah, I don't see, that's the thing. There would be other characters they could probably bring in. I mean, it's not just Manhattan. It's the 5 boroughs, at least 4 boroughs. We don't count Staten Island, but at least with other boroughs, you could always go out to these locations. It could be other people, other locations. If they decide to go, very colorful communities. Go to Brooklyn, go to Coney Island, come across the Warriors. Do something. I don't know. It could be very interesting if they keep going with this. The sky's the limit. And I know from what we shared, there was an interview with Jeffrey D. Morgan, and he lives upstate New York, and he talked about it's like, oh, this was fantastic, filming on set here, because then right after he was filming, he could just go home, as opposed to when he was on Walking Dead, he had to stay in Georgia for a month or so, and so it'll be easier. So he's looking forward to it. But that was great to hear in that interview that he believes in the project, believes in the character, and is open to coming back. Not like, oh, well, I don't know. I'm pretty busy. I got other projects, but I thought this would be. No, it sounds like he's open to continuing to play the Negan character.
I have a question for you guys. Adam, you're a lifelong New Yorker. Rich, you're a lifelong New York hater. Being Boston. I'm an appreciator of New York, so I will ask you guys this question: What what part of New York or monument or location from New York do you wish to see in this series?
Manhattan, New York, or you just or like in this because you said the series, so then that would be all of New York or just within
I'll give
Manhattan?
you an example. Like you can say they have to do a scene, or I wish they would do a scene in the Statue of Liberty or something like that.
Yeah, I actually said that earlier. That is
Yeah,
my
he said
preference.
his
Statue of
preference
Liberty.
Statue of Liberty.
Ah, you okay?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And we know they're gonna do. We saw the preview. Penn Station / Madison Square Garden uh, is at least at the outside of it is in the next episode. So that's
Mhm.
pretty cool. But Adam, what about you? Is there
Oh,
any
man.
part? It can be
There's a
Manhattan,
bunch.
or it
There's a
can
bunch.
be
Or Manhattan,
outside
definitely the Flatiron Building, 23rd Street. That location would be great to see that because that's an iconic building.
Madison Square Park.
That's a Daily Bugle. That's Spider-Man. You got to throw that in there. Yeah, Madison Square. Yeah, that's where Madison Square Park is. The post office. That's over near Madison Square Garden. That's remember from the games of Division, they use that as the base of operations. It makes perfect sense because it's huge. That would be great if there was a community that lives there and they find them. Oh man, Penn Station, and then do a whole thing where they're running around underground. There's a bunch of stores and buildings. I could see a community living there as well. That would be great. The skyline, where it was a above ground track, but then they turned it to like shop stuff. But I can see people living there for safety reasons because it's high and
Or
it's
they
not.
could do that with what's that? They have something like that, like a high. It's not super high, but it's like above ground kind of path. Oh god damn it! Where's it's by
The skyline. You're thinking on the
Chelsea.
west? Yeah, yeah, the skyline. That's it. That's it. That area. That's what I'm saying. They can go there. It's. I mean, there's so many possibilities. The bridge. Yeah, I get it. They closed off the bridge, but
Well, yeah, it feels
there's
like
a
they destroyed all of them.
yeah. All they destroyed all the bridges connecting to it. The subway tunnels, like I mentioned, the stations, Penn Station, going into those because those are really there's some really nice looking stations there, and just with the shops and stuff, I could see them turning into shelters and people living there and trying to protect themselves. Oh man, there's so many. There's a lot of possibilities, but then again, with possibilities and these ideas comes the added expense. I don't expect to see all of these things taking place, at least not in this first few 6 episodes, this first run of the show. This is more of like a testing. It was like, hey, let's see if this can work. We're gonna, like Richie said, it'll take the two most popular characters, put them together, put them in a new location, and see what sticks. See if this works. My question to you guys right now, before we just wrap this up, is: do you think this show is going to catch on? Do you think this show can bring back the community that had watched the show in its heyday, The Walking Dead proper? Do you see that community coming back for this?
I'm curious to see what Rich will say first.
Yeah, I mean the people who are fans of The Walking Dead, I'm pretty sure they'll be watching regardless because they like the characters. But in my personal opinion, if AMC has to make a decision, I'm pretty sure that Rick and Michonne, that'll be the show that they could greenlit that gets a second season that continues because they care about that character, I think, a little bit more. The Negan show can still continue. I'm not saying that it won't get picked up, but I'm saying, yeah, obviously there is no Walking Dead right now. I'm not counting Fear the Walking Dead. So
No.
I think the fans will definitely come back because they do like Negan, they do like Maggie. So yeah, they'll be back. The question is, how long will the show stick around? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see once this comes out to hear people's reactions. People, if you're watching this over on YouTube, go ahead, please comment on this. Just, I'm really curious. Are you someone that has watched the franchise or stopped after Walking Dead ended, or maybe you just fell off a few years ago and then now you heard about this happening and you're like, oh, well, let me see. is this going to pull you in? Because I personally think that out of the 3 spinoffs that we have, which is this one, like you said, the Rick Michonne, and then with the Daryl, one of them has to stick. One of them has to get to that point where it gets the viewers back. There's an interest, there's a positive buzz, and then they say season 2. Because if we don't, from any of these, that's it. I'm sorry, this is it. This is not going to be an evergreen type of situation. They've thrown a lot of different shows, like we mentioned. World Beyond, they went in that direction. That was horrible. Tales of the Walking Dead, that was horrible. There was no talks about making any more of those. So, and then Fear started off great, then just slid down and off the cliff. So that's ending. So one of these 3 has to catch fire, or else that's it. I think it's done. And it's sad because there's so many good directions you can go into. And one of them, something we've already talked about, bring the grittiness, bring the darkness, bring the fear, the just that stress. And that's what I got from this. The new location, it's dark, they're alone, they don't have all the resources, they don't have a group with them. They're in an unknown territory, and they're going to be hunted because they're on someone else's turf. It's going to be great. And it brought that interest that I could say, I'm looking forward to the next episode. Fear, I'm not looking forward to it. Back in the day with Walking Dead proper, toward the end, we just want to see how they were going to end it. We weren't like, oh man, I can't wait. I want to see what's going to happen. No, this is different though. This, I want to see how it progresses. And it's because it's new. We'll get a good feel for this show, I'd say, by episode 3 or 4, if it's going to stick the landing to the point that we're like, oh, we definitely want to see this. Because who knows? This could be a one-off type of experience where they save Herschel, and that's it. That we'll talk about that at another date, but if they even get that far. But right off, I'm excited. I hope everyone else is excited because these are some great characters, and we'll see. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in over at the Koalition on YouTube, Koalition.com, iTunes, Spotify. It's I Am Negan, and we're back. This is what we were excited for, and I know I'm saying we're back. Meanwhile, we've been covering Fear, but we're back with some new Walking Dead content is what I'm meaning. It's like this feels fresh. It feels new. It's like, going to pick up a new comic series. I'm like, oh, wow, this is fun. All right. When's the next issue coming out? I'm in. I'm all in on this. And that's where I feel here. So thanks again, Rich and Carlos. We're all here. We're back. And we will see you next week for episode 2. Peace.
Peace out.